Itsuki was a magic-obsessed loser whose only friends were dusty spellbooks until his all-night study session unlocked a cursed evil eye that made him the reluctant heir of Astral, a failing mage company. Stuck with a harem of overpowered girls, he's now dodging cursed contracts, ghost girl sims, and Adalicia's death threats, all while trying not to wet himself. But before any of this, Itsuki is writing in his journal, thinking hard about how different magical powers can be mixed and how that can really change what happens in a fight. So, he spends the whole night studying without stopping. Then he falls asleep and dreams where he sees two kids running as fast as they can from some scary dark power that is chasing them. In the dream, just when it looks like they are about to get caught, the boy suddenly pushes the girl ahead to help her escape. The next day, Itsuki and his friends are spending time together and celebrating Boys' Day inside a mage's office. While they're hanging out, Ren starts telling Itsuki that to keep evil spirits away, they have to decorate the place with things like traditional dolls and old suits of armor, just like the ones around them now. He also says that the kind of magic used for controlling the power of spells is called semantic magic. Itsuki tries to say something to Ren, but then Hanami arrives, and she informs that on the night of Halloween, fairies turn evil and kidnap young children. Later that same afternoon, Itsuki is walking home when he sees someone coming fast toward him on a weird little spaceship that's floating just above the ground. The person turns out to be a baddie named Adalicia, and she quickly asks if he's the second-generation president of Astral. After that, she tells him that she runs a company called Gosha, but Itsuki acts like he has no clue what Gosha is. Seeing this, Adalicia asks if he's ever heard the name before. Then she suddenly gets mad and yells at him, saying he's useless for not knowing such an important name. She then tells him that she is here to sign a contract, but he has no idea what it is, so she tells him to sign it. Itsuki wonders if it's something that will hurt Astral, but Adalicia summons her Bordy's monster to force Itsuki to sign it. However, Hanami arrives on time and disappears the magic which Adalicia did on him. Afterward, Adalicia leaves, and Hanami tells Itsuki not to force himself to be the president. Later that night, Itsuki has the same strange dream again, but he's suddenly woken up by a phone call from Ren, causing him to fall out of bed. Ren tells him to head to the job site right away, so Itsuki rushes there. Meanwhile, Hanami has already arrived at the location. She's scanning the area and realizes that the spell wave contamination isn't a big deal. But then, she notices something strange. A creepy old mansion appears in front of her, making her feel like the hunter is now the one being hunted. As she enters the house, she steps inside and finds Itsuki sitting on the floor behind her. Suddenly, a black hole opens beneath him, and before either of them can react, he falls straight into it. Hanami runs around, trying to find a way to reach him, while Itsuki comes face to face with a giant headless knight riding a horse. He looks for a place to hide, but then realizes the knight is searching for a head. Right then, Hanami shows up and saves him once again. She tells him he still hasn't changed, but says she's not the same girl she used to be either. After that, the knight charges at her, and she remembers a moment from the past when Itsuki first awakened his evil eye. Using her magic power, Itsuki unleashes a strong attack, completely destroying the knight, and the whole place bursts into flames. The next night, Itsuki and the others are walking, and he thinks about what that guy told him, that ever since he became Astral's new president, he hasn't really done anything. Back in the forest, Hanami thinks the guy might be right, because the association can't keep an organization registered if it doesn't show results for a long time. Afterward, they reach their destination and Itsuki already starts to panic. He asks everyone if Adalicia is nearby too, and Hanami tells him that she has the same materials as they do. Meanwhile, Adalicia tells her team that the association's request is to seal off the night without anyone noticing. Then, the countdown starts, and as the area turns red, Itsuki's evil eye begins to hurt again. Ren also sees that the spell wave contamination has dropped from level 6 to level 3. The next night, Itsuki and the others are walking, and he thinks about what that guy told him, that ever since he became Astral's new president, he hasn't really done anything. Back in the forest, Hanami thinks the guy might be right, because the association can't keep an organization registered if it doesn't show results for a long time. However, Itsuki asks Hanami if they smash the core of the night, this sea will disappear. Hanami tells Itsuki he's right, that the race really does go to the swift. Meanwhile, Adalicia's team is creating some kind of barrier, but she watches Mikan and figures out their magic is meant to hold their position. She thinks it's a waste of spell power and wonders why people like them are even still around. Meanwhile, Itsuki and Hanami realize that Adalicia has summoned something dangerous, and they turn out to be some kind of eagles. Seeing them, Hanami quickly rushes forward at high speed, then suddenly changes direction. She jumps onto Itsuki's shoulder and throws her magical blades straight at the eagles. Afterwards, they see Adalicia moving towards them, and Ren realizes that someone's magic is lying beside the knight's core. Adalicia then summons different kinds of monsters and instructs them to destroy Itsuki and his side chick. Suddenly, a bright light appears and the demons get disintegrated in an instant. Eventually, Itsuki falls and wakes up next to Adelisha. He freaks out, realizing that this place might be inside the sea. Meanwhile, Hanami and the others are also on their way to find him. Adelisha, however, is drawing a pattern on the ground, and Itsuki asks if he can help her escape. She tells him that he can do that if he wants to help himself. Itsuki then says he will help her find something, and in return, she should help him escape. Adelisha performs her magic, but it turns into a complete disaster, causing Itsuki to burst out laughing. Later, Adelisha tells Itsuki that this place is inside the body of a creature, and by it, she means they came to capture one of their own who broke a taboo. Suddenly, a slimy magical monster appears and changes into the form of Adelisha's father. Then it shifts into other forms and goes to attack Itsuki. But Adelisha's Edgar steps in and saves him just in time. Soon after, Hanami and the others arrive and help them out. Itsuki tells Hanami that what they just saw must stay a secret and asks her to let Mikan and Ren know too. Later that night, Kagezaki informs everyone that neither Gosha nor Astral were able to destroy the core as agreed upon in their contract. Itsuki asks if another Magi night like that one will happen again. Kagezaki confirms that there will be. He then mentions rumors about a Gosha mage committing a taboo and asks Adelisha about it. This shocks everyone, but Adelisha dismisses it, saying the association should not pay attention to such rumors. However, Kagezaki pulls out a map, explaining that they've been tracing the origin of the spell power that caused that night, and it leads back to the UK. So, Kagezaki believes that a Gosha studio was built right on top of that ley line. He also informs them that, 4 months ago, during the first Magi Night, Gosha's former leader and several mages died at that same studio. Hearing this, Itsuki stands up and says that he and Adelisha fell into the sea but did not see anything. After that, Kagezaki leaves, and Hanami calls Itsuki a president pushover again. Then, Hanami asks Adelisha if she's gotten weaker after fighting that mage the night before, but Adelisha replies that she is fine on her own. Itsuki steps in and says he knows how strong she really is and how she has her own way of doing things. Then he asks her to work with them, and everyone is shocked when they hear that. Later, Ren and Adelisha get into an argument about the money. Adelisha says that if they are doing a joint operation, then the terms should be fair for both sides. But Ren argues that Astral has 4 members, while Gosha is just her alone. Later, Hanami calls Itsuki a president pushover again for agreeing to the joint operation. Itsuki then asks her if, with her powers, she could have gotten offers from other magical groups, so why did she choose to join them, but she simply replies that it's because he was there. Afterward, everyone sits down together and Itsuki is shocked when he hears that Adelisha is going to be the bait. Adelisha explains that in order to become Solomon's magic, her father had to absorb all 72 demons and the remaining ones are now under her control. Later, Adelisha takes them to an abandoned park and decides to draw out the mage who is behind the core of the night. Meanwhile, Hanami and Ren are going to deal with the mage themselves. Adelisha tells Itsuki that she came here to preserve her father's honor. But Itsuki asks her if she loves her father. Just then, the call gets disconnected between the two and someone speaks up, saying he has come to devour Adelisha. Her father appears behind her and starts walking towards the pot she brought for him. However, Adelisha tells Itsuki that she didn't bring it for him but to shatter his delusions. Right then, Mikan shows up and creates a barrier between Adelisha and her slimy father. After that, Ren uses some kind of magic, and her father starts to burn. Adelisha summons a Ligger to attack, but her father ends up absorbing a Ligger's powers. When Itsuki calls out to Adelisha, her father hears his voice and charges at him in the form of a bird. Hanami rushes in to protect Itsuki but is shocked when she sees blood coming from his right eye. Meanwhile, Itsuki tells Adelisha's father to protect his own honor, but just as he's about to eat her, Hanami saves her just in time. Later, the two of them fall into the pool. On the other side, Itsuki takes off his eye patch. And when Adelisha's father summons a lion to attack him, Itsuki's eye activates some kind of magic that sends the lion flying back at the man. After that, Itsuki charges at him and punches him hard, which causes him to return to his original form, but then he vanishes. The next day, Itsuki wakes up in a hospital bed with a bunch of high schoolers crowding around and signing his leg bandage. Soon after, Minami walks in and asks if he's feeling okay, but then she suddenly gets all clingy. She starts feeling down, realizing that once he's discharged, she might never see him again. Trying to lighten the mood, she tells him about the hospital's 7 wonders, starting with a creepy story about a woman who crawls through the corridors of the surgical ward on the 4th floor. Hearing that, Itsuki starts panicking right away because he's a total scaredy cat. Just then, Hanami walks in and drops a stack of Itsuki's work materials right on top of him, telling him it's time to get back to work. She then looks at Minami and asks who she is. Itsuki quickly introduces her, saying that Minami is his new friend. Hanami then gives a business card to Minami, saying she should contact her if she wants anything. Later on, Minami asks Itsuki if he's really the president of a company. And when he says yes, she gets excited and says that's amazing. She then asks what kind of company it is. Curious, she also asks what magic on rent means. Itsuki explains that it's when someone hires a magic user to do a specific job. Suddenly, his eye starts burning, and Manami panics, saying it must be one of the 7 wonders of the hospital. After teasing him for a bit, Manami laughs and says it was all a joke, she was just messing with him. Meanwhile, Hanami uses her magic to walk through a forest and ends up finding a memory stone. Later, she returns home and tells Mikan and Ren that their president is a total weirdo who somehow has time to mess around with girls. Later that night, Itsuki walks through the hospital hallway, thinking he should get back to his room. Just then, Ren appears and asks if he's found the core yet. He warns that the spell wave contamination has already reached level 4 and if it rises any higher, things could get bad. Suddenly, they hear footsteps of someone is walking toward them, leaving bloody handprints across the floor. Meanwhile, Manami wonders why Itsuki is taking so long in the bathroom. She hears strange voices coming from outside. Curious and a little worried, she steps out of her room to check, but as soon as she does, a monster appears and grabs her. On the other hand, Ren informs Itsuki that a sudden appearance of a mysterious crater in Siberia has happened and people are disappearing. Hanami also joins them and shows a fragment of a memorial marker. Hanami then tells Itsuki if that Manami is none other than a ghost, but finds it weird that he is okay with it. Suddenly, Hanami notices that the business card she had given to Manami is missing and she realizes something is wrong. Just then, the monster attacks, but Hanami quickly strikes back with her magic. As the battle continues, Itsuki starts to think that if the monster had devoured a ghost, then it might actually be a soul eater. He removes his eye patch and with his evil eye activated, he manages to pull Manami out of the creature. At the same time, Ren and Hanami continue their assault on the monster. Itsuki then destroys its core and successfully wakes Manami. The next day, Manami thanked Itsuki for everything he did for her. But instead of playing it cool, he immediately starts acting like a weirdo and asks if she wants to join their group. The next day, the managing director, Diana, visits Itsuki and the others, saying she called as soon as she heard Astral had reopened for business. Hanami mentions that the former president, Tsukasa, had a relationship with her company. Diana nods and replies that their connections ranged from spirit paper for talismans to crystals. She then explains that she's here to ask for a favor. Diana shows them a picture of a flower and says she wants Itsuki to harvest it for her. It turns out the flower is a caterpillar fungus. Hanami explains that it parasitically grows on worms and similar creatures during winter and turns into grass in the summer. However, Diana tells them that this particular flower attaches itself to people, and it takes years before it blooms on the skeleton of its host. Itsuki asks if the host is aware of this, to which Diana responds, asking if he's wondering if she injects it into people without them knowing. Afterward, Diana tells them that 10 years ago, Tsukasa made her a promise when the first person affected by the flower died. She then reveals that the caterpillar fungus will bloom tomorrow night. The next night, Itsuki and his team of baddies sit beside a graveyard, waiting for the flower to bloom. Hanami tells him that there is something Diana is hiding because she wouldn't come to them if it was just about a flower. Eventually, Itsuki and Manami walk together and she asks him if he's still thinking about his dad. Just as he's about to respond, his eye starts burning. They both watch as the flower begins to bloom in front of them, but suddenly, a car hits Manami and she falls to the ground. At that moment, the entire area is engulfed in mist and a mysterious man appears. He introduces himself as Seiyu and tells Itsuki that he's only immobilized Manami for a bit using a talisman. He then tells them that the caterpillar was originally his fetish, but Diana and people of Astral stole it. Moreover, Itsuki quickly removes the talisman from Manami's chest. Just as he moves, Seiyu then throws a bunch of talismans into the sky, and soon, countless muddy figures rise from the graves. He explains that these are his paper soldiers and then grabs the flower and orders his soldiers to attack Itsuki. However, before they can strike, Hanami snatches the flower back and uses it to launch a counterattack on his soldiers. Itsuki grabs Hanami's flying thing, but she just moves away her ladder before Manami could get on it. Later, Itsuki asks her why she didn't save her, to which she replies that it was a trap from the start. Hanami opens her wrist and tells a stone to show them a way, and the stone moves towards a tree. She walks towards it and finds a talisman hiding inside of it, so Itsuki tells her that Seiyu said the caterpillar was his. However, Hanami thinks that 'tis a lame excuse and shows him the flower, saying it's a memory. She explains that it's a life energy that's essentially people's memories, and when they die, their memories burst out and vanish. Now Itsuki understands why Diana wants the caterpillar back from a man like that, so he is going to help her get it back. Meanwhile, Manami continues to suffer from the effects of the talisman Seiyu had placed on her chest. Suddenly, Diana arrives at the scene, and Seiyu smugly tells her and Manami that when he stole the caterpillar flower, he used the lives of an entire village to fertilize it. Moments later, Itsuki and Hanami arrive as well. Despite her pain, Minami summons her strength and uses her powers to hurl gravestones at Sei. Then, Itsuki takes off his eye patch, but before he can move, a monster attacks him. He quickly uses his ultra instinct to dodge, and after that, he beats all the soldiers around him. When they're all down, Itsuki fights Seiyu and beats him up. Later, they give the flower to Diana and she looks at it and calls it her mother. Afterward, there's an accident on a service highway and Ren and his teammate head over because Ren was told that the thing causing trouble is a monster that looks like a dog. Itsuki calls Ren and worries if their plan will really work, since the monster is chasing after Ren and the others. But Ren could only rent the cheapest truck because they were so broke. He tells Mikan to attack the monster, so she uses her power to shoot fire at it. After they drive past the bridge, Ren throws some talismans on the road to stop the monster from coming any closer. At the same time, Itsuki shows up too, but his entrance doesn't go as planned. Right then, the monster jumps onto the bridge, but Hanami shows up just in time. She takes out some needles and throws them at the monster, but it avoids them and jumps back toward Itsuki and the others. It turns out that Itsuki's barrier is the weakest one, so the dog-like monster picks him as the first one to fight. The dog rushes straight at Itsuki while Hanami and the others run after it, trying to help him. After that, the dog grabs the string from Itsuki's barrier and takes off running, dragging the string with Itsuki still holding on tight. Everyone yells at him to let go of the string, but he refuses to let go. Just then, Adelicia shows up too. With nothing left to do, the dog stands in place while Adelicia calls out her monsters to chase after it. In the end, one of Adelicia's monsters takes down the dog and completely destroys it. After that, she looks at Hanami and says she's not acting like her usual self. After she leaves, Ren guesses that she followed them. The next day, a girl visits the astral office and Ren, who's standing beside her, asks her creepily if she has some kind of business with them. Meanwhile, Hanami calculates the costs of all the things and asks Itsuki how they are going to pay these expenses. Just then, a girl walks into the room and Itsuki tells everyone that she's his classmate from school. After that, Itsuki introduces her to the whole group. Later on, the girl takes out a business card that looks really old, and she explains that it belonged to her grandfather. She says that one day, he disappeared like he was spirited away, and now she wants to hire Astral's help to find him. The next day, Itsuki and Minami go with her to her house and she shows them her grandfather's room. While they're there, she tells them about her past, explaining that her parents died 5 years ago. After that, her grandfather was the only family she had left. She also says that ever since he began collecting antiques, he started to grow more distant from her. Meanwhile, Ren and the others are still in the forest, and he lets Hanami know that Itsuki and Minami are talking to Kaneki. After hearing that, Hanami explains that the association told her about a mage who broke an anti-spirit taboo, which is why she came to investigate the area. But then Ren starts to wonder if the anti-fetish was released about 5 years ago, which is the same time Kanuga's parents died. They start to figure out that her grandfather might have survived because he used the anti-spirit fetish to protect himself. Suddenly, they rush toward the girl's house, and right at that moment, it gets covered in a strange evil mist. Itsuki takes off his eye patch and quickly gives the location to his teammates. After that, they all work together and manage to defeat the monster. In the end, Itsuki breaks one of her grandfather's antiques, and it turns out that her grandfather had placed those fetishes inside the antiques to keep himself alive. Some days later, Hanami introduces the new person who hired them, whose name is Shinogi. She tells him about the shrine which is dedicated to the god of swords. Later, Shinogi tells them that she wanted to hire them as a saniwa, which means it's a person can tell the difference between a god or not. However, Shinogi tells them that she hired them because a colleague of her requested it. Right then, she says that she will give details inside but tells Hanami that she can't entire a shrine because she is a foreign witch. Inside, Itsuki starts to feel bad because of his eye, so Mikan quickly performs some purification to freshen the air. Afterward, they enter a room where Shinogi shows them a sick child lying down. But then she says that he's actually her older brother, Minagi. Both Itsuki and Mikan are shocked and freak out when they hear that. So, Shinogi starts to explain that 10 years ago, when the last head of the shrine passed away, the shrines began turning on each other and started backstabbing to gain power. Back then, she and her younger brother were trying to summon a god to protect the shrine. But then she suddenly fainted. When she regained consciousness, she found her brother lying on the floor, and standing there was Kagezaki. Moreover, ever since then, her brother has been like that, so now she wants to hire the power of Saniwa to protect the shrine and take her brother back. Later, Adelicia and Hanami start arguing over some childish stuff, but Itsuki asks them if this job is dangerous in any way. Adelicia explains that if the association know about it, then they would get the boy killed for being the source of spell wave contamination. At that moment, Hanami steps back, saying she can't help even if she wanted to because she's a terrible witch. Soon after, Mikan arrives with some materials and Itsuki tells her they're going to reject the new job. However, Mikan insists that she's already prepared everything. She's determined to take on the job because she loves the festival at the shrine. Hearing that, Itsuki decides that they are going to do this job because he doesn't want Mikan's enthusiasm to have been for nothing. Later that night, Itsuki and Mikan head toward the shrine, with Manami seeing them off. Just then, Kagezaki shows up and asks if Mikan is the new member. He then informs them that the association has no involvement in this job since it's a direct contract with Astral. But he also expresses his concern, saying he believes they might fail to summon the god. Afterward, Mikan tries to cast her magic, but suddenly, Shinoga's brother wakes up and hits her with a wooden sword. Right at that moment, the Futsunushi god appears beside him. The god introduces himself as Take Minakata, and seeing him there causes Shinogi to remember her childhood. Meanwhile, Kagezaki believes that the body of Take Minakata himself is causing the spell wave contamination, and back in the day Shinoga's brother also summoned another god, and now both of the gods faced each other. Meanwhile, the god asks Itsuki and the others about Futsunushi and starts walking toward Itsuki. As the god approaches, Itsuki reaches for his eye patch, but Mikan stops him and says that it's her job to handle this. The god suddenly attacks them, but Itsuki quickly jumps in and saves her. Afterward, Mikan uses a special technique called Tamashism, which was passed down and mastered by the Katsuragi clan. It's a powerful ability made to stand against a god, and Mikan uses all her strength to face the god head-on. But when her power starts to weaken, the god strikes back, and just then, Hanami shows up right on time and saves her. Afterward, Mikan uses her ability, and this time she performs well, and in the end, Shinoga's brother wakes up. The next day, all the Astral members head to a hot spring by the beach. Manami brings some herbal tea for the always weird Itsuki, looking even more stunning than Bella had. However, Itsuki can't help but stare at her for a while, saying the outfit looks amazing on her. Later, Mikan and Hanami show up too, wearing bikinis, but what really grabs his attention is a delicious figure when she arrives. Meanwhile, Shinogi and her brother are preparing for the festival when he says that Itsuki and others are having fun at the beach. Shinogi thinks that they deserve that much after she gave them a task. On the other hand, Hanami and Delisha start getting ready for different activities so they can compete with each other. Later on, Itsuki and Manami visit a cave where there's a Funadama doll. Earlier, Shinogi had explained to Itsuki that Funadama is a special charm from the Meiji period that ships used to pray for safe travel. But she also told him that the person who found this one believed it was cursed, so they brought it to Shinogi for help. So, she gave them the task to return it from where it came from. Back in the cave, Itsuki places the doll back to its place, but then the entire cave fills with black mist, and Itsuki and Manami, including Ren's cat, vanish somewhere. Meanwhile, Hanami wonders why Itsuki and Manami haven't returned yet, and Ren also mentions that he has no contact with his cat either. However, Itsuki and Manami find themselves on a boat in some kind of different dimension. A man walks up to them, saying Itsuki looks livelier than he expected, and introduces himself as Hayoto. He explains that he was out fishing 3 days ago when he got caught in a strange fog and ended up there. After that, Itsuki grabs the cat's paw, trying to ask Ren for help, but it seems like there's no signal or response from the other side. Itsuki thinks that Hayoto is from a different time because his clothes and boats don't look modern. They figured out that they might be in some kind of spell wave contamination, so Manami quickly says that recursion and endowment are close to this. In addition, Manami says that the core of the spell they're stuck in seems to be connected to the boat itself. After that, Itsuki asks Hayoto why he keeps tossing away the wishes he's been catching. Hearing this, Hayoto gets upset, but Itsuki calmly tells him that he's a magician. Hayoto then explains that his family has been catching mermaids for centuries, and when he was a child, they gave him a piece of mermaid meat to cure a serious infection. Meanwhile, Ren and the others ask an old woman if she has seen some strange things in the area. She then tells them about mermaids, but she doesn't inform much and tells them to go back from where they came from. However, she tells them that one who has eaten their meat will be devoured by them. Meanwhile, Hayoto tells Itsuki about his dead daughter, so Itsuki asks if he was trying to catch a mermaid to save his daughter. Just then, a bunch of mermaids start showing up in the ocean, and both Itsuki and Manami get attacked. In the middle of the chaos, Manami calls upon the spirit of Hayoto's daughter, and the spirit takes form inside of Funadama. The mermaids start chasing after the Funadama instead, giving Itsuki and Manami a chance to escape and return to their own time. Later on, Shinogi talks about how the shrine is being worshipped again, and Itsuki figures out that it's probably one of Hayoto's descendants who started the worship. Afterward, the group of baddies all take a bath together, and while they relax, Hanami washes a stick and wonders if it might help heal Itsuki's eye. At the same time, Ren tries to sneak into the girls' side of the hot spring and says they should all just bathe together, but Itsuki stops him right away. Ren then tries to explain that since they came all this way to treat Itsuki's eye, it should be totally fine if everyone goes into the bath at the same time. Just then, Hanami opens the door and it slams on Ren's nose, and not only that, Itsuki starts bleeding as well. However, he starts acting freaky as he could smell a nice scent coming from Hanami. Later, they all go into the forest to look for the key line, but then Idalisha suddenly grabs Itsuki's tool and summons Shax, thinking he can lead them to the key line. Even though Shax is now helping, Hanami decides to wait and see where he goes because she wants to watch how the treatment works herself. But Idalisha gets annoyed and starts arguing, asking Hanami if she thinks she's her dog or something. Afterward, Hanami's cheap tool shows that the key line is right under them, so Itsuki gets ready to dig it up. But Mikan stops him and says that digging into a mountain might make the local gods angry. So instead, she uses her power to purify the spot. Just as Itsuki begins to dig again, Idalisha suddenly summons a powerful demon called Prosel. When Ren sees this, he thinks to himself that calling out such a strong demon just to dig is honestly a huge mistake. Prosel manages to dig the area, but then the water pipe below them breaks, so the entire area fills with water. Now, Hanami decides to flex her powers and throws a stick onto the ground and summons a strange creature from the ground that quickly grabs all the treasures nearby. But once Hanami opens the treasure boxes, she finds nothing useful, so Idalisha and Hanami start arguing again. So, Manami comes up with an idea and suggests they should have a contest to see who can find the hot spring first. Right after that, both of them go all out with their full power. Idalisha summons her demon Marbas, and Hanami calls on a goddess who controls light to help her. But after a while, they both start feeling dizzy and sick from using too much magic and also because of all the damage they caused to the area around them. In the end, they all end up falling into a cave, and since Hanami already used up all her powers, she can't use any magic at all now. Even Idalisha's magic circle begins to fade away because she pushed herself too hard earlier and used too much of her strength. Afterwards, they start exploring the cave. And that's when Itsuki notices the water flowing beside them is warm, meaning it's from a hot spring, so the source must be close by. Right then, they find a sacred Shinto rope, which looks like it belongs to a guardian spirit of the mountain. But Mikan thinks it was originally up at the top of the mountain and probably fell down into the cave because of the heavy rain. Afterwards, everyone uses their different powers to move the big rock, and it actually starts shifting, but then it suddenly gets stuck on something. That's when Itsuki notices a tool is wedged between the rock, so he quickly rushes over to it. He manages to pull the tool out, and right after that, the rock lifts up and flies straight through the air, heading to the top of the mountain. Later on, they finally make it to their hot spring and take a nice shower, but Ren is still feeling down because he didn't have a mixed bath with the baddies like he wanted. Throwback to a delicious past, she has a match against two boys from their cheap version of a Hogwarts-like school, and the teachers give them the signal to start the battle. At first, one of the boys hesitates to make a move, so Idalisha quickly activates her magic circle and summons Fornius, who charges straight at the boys. But they don't hold back either and summon their own monsters to fight back. In the end, Fornius overpowers them and wins the match, and everyone around starts whispering that it's clear Idalisha is a descendant of Solomon. However, Idalisha tells the boys that they won't be able to pass the Magi Night by fighting like that. Later that afternoon, Idalisha finds Hanami sitting alone in the library, reading ghost stories. Curious, she asks Hanami if her specialty is Celtic magic, since it's a kind of sorcery that's no longer practiced. But Hanami ignores the question and instead says that she thinks Idalisha beat the boys too badly for no reason. The next day, the head of school announces that it's Magi Night tonight and only those who pass will be recognized as official freshmen at this academy. Later that night, all the students head out and are shocked to see a giant gate in front of them. For this initial test, they are paired up in groups of 2, and unless both can survive the night, they'll fail. But Idalisha isn't concerned. She's determined to do whatever it takes for herself. Afterward, she opens a note and finds out that Hanami is her partner. Hanami can't believe they've turned an old school building into a haunted house for the test. Later, they face a headless nobleman who wanders the school every night looking for his head. Idalisha summons her monster and defeats the nobleman in a single go. She then moves to a head and defeats every single monster one by one. Hanami asks her why she is breaking the spell wave contamination, so Idalisha replies that she is going to break the core of the school's ghost stories instead of waiting. Afterward, Hanami and Idalisha go their separate ways. As Idalisha walks alone, a wolf suddenly appears and charges at her, but she quickly summons her monster again to defeat it. After the fight, she approaches a gravestone and realizes that it's the source of the spell wave contamination. Deciding to destroy it, she summons Fornius to smash the gravestone. Fornius successfully destroys it, but right after, Fornius completely vanishes and a mysterious power begins to rise from the grave. Afterward, everyone falls on the floor, so Idalisha wonders if it's all because of her. Meanwhile, Hanami thinks that the spell contamination is expanding, so she decides to fight for Itsuki's sake. She goes to save Idalisha from falling down and tells her that she didn't completely destroy the core of spell wave contamination. Afterward, Hanami asks Idalisha for help in saving the others, and together they head toward the core. Hanami uses her Celtic magic, and with that, they manage to save everything. Back in the present, Adelisha is showing Itsuki and Minami an album of pictures and starts telling them everything about her and Hanami's past. The next day, Itsuki is walking around and sees a bunch of kids playing soccer and he feels happy, thinking that working hard and getting a reward really feels good. Just then, he spots a red-haired girl sitting alone on a street nearby, so he walks over to check if she's okay. But as he gets closer, he notices that she's bleeding. Without wasting a second, he runs off to grab some napkins to help his new baddie. But she asks if he isn't surprised by her, but Itsuki doesn't care because he has seen much worse. However, the girl then says that she is a homunculus, which means she is an imitation human. Later on, Itsuki realizes that the girl is actually hungry, so he shares some of his food with her and even teaches her how to eat it properly. Out of nowhere, she quietly says that someone is coming, which makes Itsuki confused as he wonders who she's talking about. Still, before the girl leaves, Itsuki hands her his business card with his address on it, just in case she needs anything. Afterward, Itsuki gets home and finds Lapis waiting for him already, and then she starts hugging him, saying her name is Lapis. Then, everyone starts teasing her, saying he has some kind of secret bond with her. After a while, Lapis tells them that she needs the eye of a basilisk. So Ren explains that the king of venomous serpents mentioned in the book of Jeremiah, and anyone who looks into its eyes will be turned into a stone and die. However, Lapis places a gold coin on table and Ren believes that if they find a basilisk eye for her, she will give it to them. Looking at the coin, Ren realizes that it's worth $500,000, but Itsuki thinks that it doesn't matter what she gives them because the task seems impossible, but then Ren hands over a document and tells her to sign it. Afterward, the red-haired girl leads them to a mysterious ruin, and Hanami is shocked, unable to believe that a place with such strong spell power actually exists. But Ren has a different idea. He thinks someone must have cast a barrier around it to hide it. Then, Hanami seriously warns Itsuki not to look into a basilisk's eyes no matter what happens. Just then, the girl, now known as Lapis, guides them toward a nearby cave where they suddenly hear the roar of a monster. After running to where the sound came from, Itsuki finds Lapis standing beside a monster who's trapped in chains. Ran and Mikan use their abilities to protect Lapis, but Basilisk uses his ability to throw her away. Then Itsuki removes his eye patch and instructs everyone to defeat Basilisk, and then they defeat him. Afterward, Itsuki faints right there, and everyone quickly takes him back to the mansion. Ren checks him and says that while there are no outside injuries, the right side of his body has taken a lot of damage from spell wave contamination. Ren decides to heal him using his own ability, but as he tries, the contamination starts affecting him too. So he tells Hanami and Minami to leave the room and go find a solution for Itsuki's treatment before it gets worse. Later, Ren leaves the room and informs everyone that Itsuki is doing well, explaining the more powerful the magic, the greater the debt he has to pay. Later on, Lapis begins touching Itsuki's body in a strange way, which makes Mikan step in and push her aside, saying she shouldn't be touching him at all since everything that happened is her fault. The two of them start arguing and fighting for a bit until Itsuki finally wakes up. Afterward, he notices that Lapis is bleeding again, so he asks her if her wound is okay. Then Hanami walks in and suddenly asks Lapis if she is a homunculus. She freaks out at Itsuki for hiding such an important thing. Afterward, Mikan decides to cast a barrier on her to test, and then Itsuki tells her that Hanami and Mikan are just testing her for his safety. But Lapis starts talking like a maniac and generates a powerful spell that blasts in the room. Hanami manages to save both Mikan and Itsuki on time, but then Lapis runs away. Meanwhile, Adelisha is running away from a mysterious red-haired man who tells her that he's not going to let her get away after she came all this way to his studio. She seems surprised, having no idea that Thaloid had set up a studio in that place. Thaloid then asks if she was involved in the Magi Knight incident along with Astral's successor. Hearing that, Adelisha quickly summons her monster, and it charges straight at Thaloid, but he throws a strange chemical at the creature, causing a sudden blast. Adelisha tries to escape, but she suddenly finds a massive clock standing in front of her, blocking the way. Without wasting time, she summons Fornius, jumps off the building and keeps running. But just ahead, she sees Lapis standing in her path. Using her eye, Lapis activates her ability and attacks Adelisha, but Adelisha quickly responds by summoning a Ligger to defend herself. The next day at Astral's place, Itsuki gets annoyed after seeing a huge pile of mails waiting for him, but then he spots a letter from Adelisha mixed in. Right at that moment, Kagezaki shows up and hands him something, saying that the association has decided it would be best to leave it in his hands. He also explains that someone has stepped forward to object to him inheriting this, claiming that he doesn't have the right skills to become the company's president. After that, Mikan runs over to the window and sees a massive airship floating right above their house. So Kagezaki calmly says that they've prepared a place where they can have a direct conversation about it. After a while, in the airship, Itsuki shows Adelicia's letter to Hanami and it didn't have anything important. Just then, Kazaki arrives with the person who raised the objection to Itsuki's inheritance, and it turns out to be Lapis. She brings a message from her older brother, Thaloid, and then calmly asks Itsuki if he truly wants to keep living life as a mage. She begins to manipulate him, saying that when she saw he became the president, she started wishing to inherit everything that belonged to him, starting with Astral itself. However, Itsuki says that he is determined to be Astral's president and he can't leave any of his members behind. After hearing that, Lapis decides that she will settle the inheritance with a sorcery duel, but Itsuki rejects her offer, saying he has no intentions of fighting her. However, Lapis thinks that Adelicia told him everything, and after Itsuki hears her name he gets shocked and asks how she knows about her. But then Lapis says that if Itsuki agrees to the fade, she'll tell him everything about herself. Afterward, he checks the agreement and signs it. That's when Kazaki brings out a briefcase and says the winner of the fade will receive the key inside. As Lapis turns to leave, Itsuki suddenly asks how Adelicia is doing. Without any emotion, Lapis tells him that Adelicia is dead. After hearing that, Hanami throws a sharp needle at her, but she dodges as she will take revenge for Adelicia. Afterward, Lapis casts a spell and the whole place gets covered in thick mist. Itsuki takes off his eye patch and tells Hanami to shoot fire arrows at Lapis, and one of them hits her. Lapis jumps off the airship and spreads her wings to fly away, but Itsuki and Hanami follow her through the air. Hanami manages to strike Lapis again, but then suddenly, Itsuki loses his balance and falls off from the thing they're flying on. Later, Itsuki wakes up in a bed beside Hanami and she heals all the weird marks on his body. Itsuki curses himself for being the reason Adelicia got killed, but Hanami tells him not to take his eye patch off unless his life depends on it. After a while, Mikan brings up the possibility that Adelicia might still be alive and suggests that Thaloid could be lying. But Hanami says that mages die all the time and they can't always hold on to hope. Just then, a strange portal suddenly appears out of nowhere, and a surge of powerful energy blasts toward them. Ren immediately jumps into action and uses his ability to shield everyone, protecting them just in time from the impact. Afterward, Itsuki steps out of his office and sees Lapis floating in the air, surrounded by her summoned monsters. At the same time, Hanami confronts Thaloid directly, already aware that he's the one who created Itsuki's eye patch. Without hesitation, she unleashes her magic, causing strings of energy to stretch out from all directions within the forest, and shoots straight toward Thaloid. At the same time, Itsuki feels a strong burning in his eyes, but he remembers what Hanami told him, not to take off his eye patch unless things get really bad. But then, Lapis uses her left eye and shoots a beam straight at Itsuki's eye patch. When Ren sees this, he quickly figures out that Thaloid is the one who gave Lapis that eye. Lapis then starts charging up her attacks, but before she can finish, a different power suddenly shows up and wipes out all of her monsters. The monsters that appear are the same ones Adelicia used before. It turns out Adelicia is still alive and she has come to save Itsuki. Then she quickly moves over to him and heals both of his eyes. After that, she tells Lapis that the barrier from earlier had stopped her from using any of her arts back in Paris, but now she's going to finish her off. But before Adelicia can do anything, Lapis suddenly disappears, saying that her job here is done. Adelicia then turns to Itsuki and asks if Lapis told him she was dead, but she explains that she had some demons she needed to sacrifice first. After that, she gives Itsuki a charm and tells him it's something people in Egypt used to protect themselves from the evil eye. Right then, Itsuki remembers a moment from the past when he first got his evil eye. Hanami was next to him, screaming in fear. Then Thaloid showed up and placed an eye patch over his eye, saying that this eye would eventually devour him. Back in the present, Hanami wakes up in a bed and slowly realizes that Thaloid has taken everything away from her. Then Thaloid walks into the room, and Hanami notices there's a clock barrier around the place, which is meant to stop her from escaping. After that, Thaloid picks up the same briefcase that Kazaki showed earlier, and he uses his magic to unlock it. Inside the case is a notebook, and it turns out to be the original grimoire that belonged to Tsukasa Iba. At the Astral Mansion, Adelicia suggests that they should write a report and ask the association for help. She reveals that she has the parts order list, which is solid proof that Thaloid is actually an automaton. But Itsuki tells everyone that they're not going to hand these weapons over to the association, which shocks them all. He explains that there's only one attack left in the Fade, and they're going to use it to win and save Hanami. However, Adelicia says she can't step in because she's the head of Gosha, and the rules of the Fade won't let her interfere. Back at Thaloid's lab, Hanami asks Lapis what she plans to do now, but Lapis simply says that she only follows Thaloid. Suddenly, they hear a strange noise, and Lapis quickly realizes that someone has broken in. Hanami starts to think that it might be Itsuki. Right after that, she uses her magic by drawing blood from her fingernail, and with that, she finally breaks the barrier. She knows it worked when she sees one of Adalicia's monsters standing behind her. Just then, Adalicia enters the room, saying using own blood to break the barrier is like sacrificing the body. Meanwhile, Itsuki and the others come face to face with Thaloid, who asks how they managed to find him. Itsuki explains that he gave a card to Lapis earlier, and that card had a special connection that led them here. He then says that he's going to keep being Astral's president, and that he won't run away because he knows it's his job and he has to do it no matter what. After hearing that, Thaloid tells Lapis to begin summoning her strange monsters. Then, he suddenly throws a bunch of sharp needles toward Itsuki, but Minami quickly steps in and puts up her defensive wall just in time to block the attack and protect everyone. Right after that, Itsuki tells the others to start taking down the monsters. But before they can do much, Thaloid grabs Lapis by the head and says that he's going to use her now. He then takes back Lapis' eye and sends a burst of magical power flying at the rest of the group. Just then, Hanami and Adalicia also arrives. After that, Thaloid transforms Lapis into a basilisk, but using his glamzite, Itsuki is able to defeat the basilisk and break the spell, freeing Lapis. Then, Itsuki tells Thaloid that, as the president of Astral, all he can do is try to be the best version of himself. Later, when they return to the mansion, Itsuki gets a letter from Lapis and Thaloid. In the letter, they explain that he can learn more about his glamzite by studying Tsukasa's grimoire. After that, all the members get busy doing their chores around the mansion, so Itsuki decides to head into the city by himself. Since it's Christmas Eve, the whole city is full of people celebrating and enjoying the holiday. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Diana shows up with some of the items they had ordered, along with supplies they'll need for the upcoming New Year's ceremonies. She also tells everyone that Itsuki visited her a few days ago and asked her to find out what kind of gifts girls usually like. At Adalicia's mansion, Daphne, who is Adalicia's maid, shares that Itsuki came by a few days ago and asked her a strange and mysterious question. He wanted to know what kind of present Adalicia would like. When Adalicia hears this, she totally freaks out. She rushes off to find Itsuki, and along the way, she runs into Hanami. The two of them decide to keep following him into the city, and after searching for a while, they find out that Itsuki is at Shinoga's shrine. Adalicia asks Shinogi where Itsuki went, so Shinoga's older brother steps in and explains that Itsuki just stopped by to get paid for the part-time work he's been doing for them. He also adds that Itsuki said he wanted to buy a Christmas present for someone special. As soon as they hear that, both Adalicia and Hanami panic and rush off again, hoping to catch up to Itsuki. Later on, they finally run into Itsuki, and Hanami tries her best to ask him what's going on, but she can't get the words out. Instead, both she and Adalicia start throwing out random questions, which only makes Itsuki more annoyed and confused. Then, without explaining anything, Itsuki suddenly takes off, saying he has an appointment to get to. The two girls trail him through the city once again, and soon they find out that Itsuki is actually buying a present for the ghost of a girl. After a little while, Minami joins Hanami and Adalicia, and together they all spot Itsuki visiting a nearby church. After that, Adalicia summons her monster and all of them charge into the church together. Inside, they find Itsuki slowly creeping out with a group of kids. But soon, they realize that the children are actually ghosts, spirits of kids who had died in a fire long ago. Itsuki wonders out loud if there's some kind of magic that could be turned into a gift for the kids. But then it hits him that what they really need is a song. As Christmas presents, Itsuki, Hanami, Adalicia, and Minami all sing together for the ghost children. As the song ends, the church begins to fade away and the ghosts quietly disappear with it. When they all get back to the mansion, the members of Astral surprise Itsuki by revealing that they've been secretly planning a Christmas party just for him. As the party goes on and everyone enjoys the food and decorations, Adalicia suddenly asks Itsuki if he could spend the next day with her. Right after hearing that, Hanami gets upset and loudly demands to be taken along too, not wanting to be left out. The next day, a mysterious man named Isurugi shows up at Astral's mansion and asks if Itsuki is the president there. When Itsuki says yes, Isurugi explains that he's come to hire Astral's rental magica service for something called the Star Festival. But Itsuki is totally confused and has no idea what this festival even is. Just then, Ren walks in, randomly talking about his obsession with cats like it's the most important thing ever. Later that night, Itsuki and Ren decides to visit the Star Festival, and as they keep moving, Ren explains that the association wants it purified with a Star Festival. After that, Itsuki asks Ren if he knows who Isurugi is, and Ren explains that Isurugi is actually from the same magical school that Ren used to attend. Ren adds that Isurugi was his senior back then. He goes on to say that 3 years ago, he came to this mountain to take part in the Star Festival. At that time, someone who was supposed to become the next head of the school had been chosen to perform the festival, but that person ended up running away. In the end, another successor stepped in to complete the ceremony, but it didn't go well and the whole thing failed. Sadly, the onmyauji who finished the ritual ended up losing her life. Later on, Mikan joins them too, and together they all begin performing the ritual. But all of a sudden, they get attacked by someone. And during the chaos, Itsuki ends up falling into a strange dream. In the dream, he sees Onmyoji talking to Ren about something important. When Itsuki wakes up, he sees that Mikan is badly injured, but thankfully, she's going to be okay. Even with everything that happened, Ren is still there, calmly continuing the ritual like nothing's wrong. Then, Ren turns to Itsuki and asks him to be the witness for a magical duel. He explains that he plans to duel Isurugi, and until things are settled between them, the Star Festival can't be completed. Meanwhile, Hanami gets a call from Adelisha, who tells her that Isurugi is actually the one who suffered from spell wave contamination, and that regular medicine can't help him. At the same time, Itsuki talks to Isurugi and asks if he's feeling any better. He also brings up Isurugi's sister and wonders if Isurugi is trying to get revenge. Itsuki tells Isurugi bluntly that his sister made the decision to perform the Star Festival on her own and that Ren never pressured her into it. But Isurugi refuses to accept that, still holding Ren responsible for everything that happened. Just then, Ren shows up and questions Isurugi, asking if he was intentionally drawing all the spell power into himself. It's then revealed that this had been Isurugi's plan from the start. He specifically asked Astral to carry out the Star Festival so he could use it for his own purpose. Ren challenges Kei to a personal duel and Itsuki steps in to honor the request, stopping Hanami and Adelisha from interfering when they arrive. During the duel, Kei unleashes his Kyuda Kitsune, but despite the fierce effort, Ren defeats him. Lying on the ground, Kei seems satisfied that he at least gave his idol from their school days a decent challenge. As the tension fades, Ren quietly reflects on his last memories of Sakuya while the group gazes up at the shimmering aurora dancing across the sky. The following day, Kagezaki casually asks Hanami about Itsuki's whereabouts, and she tells him that Itsuki is spending the day at a mountain retreat. While training alone in the mountains, Itsuki is suddenly attacked by a larva, a dangerous magical creature that can turn nightmares into reality. Just when things look grim, a wandering mage appears and defeats the creature using a long staff. But before they can relax, the larva tries to strike again, forcing the traveler to unleash a powerful fire spell that incinerates the beast for good. Afterward, the man forces Itsuki to answer his questions and asks what he was doing here. Itsuki replies that he was just chasing the butterfly when he started having nightmares. However, the man believes that he mistreated someone who was helping a butterfly, so he decides to commit seppuku, but Itsuki stops him. Afterward, the monk introduces himself and hands Itsuki a card, explaining that he works for Astral, completely unaware that Itsuki is actually the president. Curious and eager to improve, Itsuki asks the monk, Sekiron, to train him in martial arts. Sekiron agrees and soon begins teaching him the basics. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Ren informs the others that Itsuki has chosen to stay in the mountains with Sekiron to continue his training. As the days pass, Itsuki dedicates himself to the routine, practicing tirelessly, while Hanami occasionally visits him with a lunchbox, offering both food and quiet support. During a short break in their training, Sekiron makes a trip to the Astral Mansion and speaks with Ren, requesting permission to take on one of the missions recently offered to Astral. Ren agrees, trusting Sekiron's experience and strength. That night, back at the mountain retreat, Sekiron quietly wakes Itsuki and begins teaching him about the elemental foundations behind each martial arts technique, explaining how spirit, movement, and nature are all connected. Later on, Minami shows up with a cup of tea for Itsuki. As they sit together, Itsuki opens up a little, telling her that he's not just training to become stronger, but because he wants the others to be able to rely on him when it truly counts. Afterward, magic pollution shows up on the mountain, so Minami goes to get help, but when she comes back with Hanami, Sekiron stops them. At the same time, Itsuki gets attacked by a larva that looks like a soldier in armor, and he uses Sekiron's training to beat it without using his Glamzai. After the fight, Sekiron tells him he planned the whole thing to help him get better, and he says Itsuki should use his Glamzite in battle instead of letting it take control. The next day, Adelisha's assistant shows up and asks Itsuki if he's seen Adelisha anywhere. A Gosha ceremony meant to summon the demon Asmodai ends up failing because a former member named Clive Rowland, who used to be a student of Adelisha's father, gets in the way. After that, Adelisha disappears, and later, Daphne comes to see Itsuki while he's training with Sekiron to ask if he knows where Adelisha went. That night, as Itsuki is walking down a street, he suddenly smells something weird in the air. Out of nowhere, Adelisha's monster Fornius attacks him hard. Then, Clive walks over and reveals that he's the one controlling Fornius. Adelisha appears and tells Clive to back off, but Clive seems surprised and asks why she's even there. Adelisha explains that she's there because of Asmodai, a demon said to have power over the eastern lands. After hearing that, Clive lets Itsuki go, but when Adelisha tries to attack him, Fornius turns on her and strikes back. Later on, Adelisha explains that she went back to England to summon Asmodai. one of the 4 powerful demons that rule over the other demons in the Ars Gotia, but Clive showed up and stopped her because he wants to summon Asmodai himself. She then tells Itsuki that if Clive manages to summon Asmodai, he should go back to Astral right away. Meanwhile, Clive gets ready to summon Asmodai, but on the other hand, Adelicia tells Itsuki that Clive tried to summon Asmodai before but failed and lost his arm. Afterward, Itsuki and Adelicia get there too late to stop Clive from summoning Asmodai, but right after being summoned, Asmodai kills Clive and starts attacking both Itsuki and Adelicia. Itsuki uses Sekairon's Xing-Iquan fighting style to protect himself from the demon's attacks, while Adelicia gives up her future in order to take control of Asmodai. After everything is over, she explains to Itsuki that giving up her future means she has to spend the rest of her life completely devoted to magic. After that, Daphne starts looking for Clive so she can find Adelicia, and while searching around the city, she runs into Gara, who is Gosha's secretary. Gara doesn't know where Clive is, so Daphne asks if he has any clue about what Clive might be planning. At that moment, she suddenly remembers a time when the 3 of them were happily living their lives together. But after Gara leaves, Sekairon shows up and Daphne attacks him. She asks if he heard them and starts throwing punches, but Sekairon declined, saying he has no intention of telling anything to the organization. Sekairon explains he wishes to help Daphne with her search, and after witnessing Daphne's abilities, questions why she lowered herself to being Adelicia's servant. Daphne replies that she is content to be Adelicia's servant, although she is embarrassed when Sekairon declares his love for her. Afterward, Daphne finds Clive's location in the north of Furu. Afterwards, they run into Gara and then they soon find Clive already dead, and then Daphne throws a spike at Sekairon. Gara uses forbidden magic to merge with a demon, and when he does, Sekairon figures out that Gara is actually part of Ophion, a group of mages who don't follow the usual rules or care about magical taboos. Gara then thanks his master for coming up with the idea that made it possible to fuse a human with a demon, and it's revealed that he even tricked Clive as part of his plan. After that, both Daphne and Sekairon go after him, but Daphne tells Sekairon to stay out of it. Still, Sekairon refuses to back down because he wants to beat Gara and win the heart of the girl he's fallen for. Gara starts trying to mess with Daphne's mind, but Sekairon doesn't wait. He charges straight at Gara, using all his power to fight back. Sekairon defeats Gara in a tough fight and forces him to escape. After it's over, he talks to Daphne and shares that he once had a connection with Oswald Mathers. He also brings up that Daphne is actually Adelicia's sister, who gave up her blonde hair and green eyes to become the person she is now. Daphne replies by saying that it was her father who gave her both her powers as a mage and her position inside Gosha. Then, as everything quiets down, Sekairon lies down in the grass, and before drifting off to sleep, he tells Daphne once again that he loves her. Mikan and Ren go back to visit Mikan's family, and while they're gone, Itsuki spends his time practicing martial arts. Hanami starts to feel a bit lonely because the place feels empty without Mikan and Ren, especially since they've been gone for quite a while. Later on, one of Ren's cats, Bayako, begins acting strangely, and at first, Hanami thinks it might mean Ren is finally coming back. But then, they both start to feel like something isn't right. So, Itsuki decides to check on how Mikan and Ren are doing. When he reaches out, Suzuka, who is the head of the family and also Mikan's grandmother, refuses to let Mikan return to Astral. She also reveals that Ren has gone missing, which adds to the concern. After that, Itsuki and Hanami head to the Katsuragi estate. And as they arrive, Itsuki notices that the magical energy around the place feels really strong. Soon, a tall man named Shidu shows up and tells them that Suzuka asked him to guide them to the mansion. Later, Hanami asks Shidu if he works here, but he says that he was specifically called for this mission. Then he asks if Suzuka called them here to perform a ritual. Later on, Suzuka sits down with them and explains that she can't send Mikan back to Astral because her family needs the special power that Mikan has. However, she says she might be willing to consider it if Astral can take care of an Oni that's been causing trouble on the mountain. Just as she finishes talking, they suddenly notice a creepy-looking face watching them from deep in the forest. Turns out it's the Oni itself, who attacks them. But Hanami uses her magic and throws a sharp pin at it. With Shidu leading the way, Itsuki and Hanami head up the mountain to find the Oni. As they move deeper into the woods, a swarm of Oni suddenly attack them from all sides. The 3 of them fight back, but they end up getting swallowed by the heavy magical pollution surrounding the area. After some time, Itsuki finally wakes up and finds Ren standing nearby. Alongside him is Kaori, Mikan's sister who had been missing all this time. Ren and Kaori explain to Itsuki that the ritual being performed by the Katsuragi family takes the Oni from the mountain and seals it inside the next family heir. But doing so ends up killing that person. Suzuka plans to have Mikan go through this exact ritual. Ren admits that he kidnapped Kaori in the past to stop the ritual from happening back then. However, because Suzuka placed a trace on Itsuki, Kaori's location was discovered and now Suzuka has already started the ritual. After that, the Oni grabs hold of Kaori and ends up getting pulled into the Katsuragi family's ritual circle. Hanami tries to help by using her magic. Her string spell pushes Shido closer to Kaori so he can rescue her. But just as he's about to reach her, the Oni smashes through Hanami's magic, breaking the spell. The ritual begins right after, and in a flash, both the Oni and Kaori vanish. After everything, Ren realizes they were tricked all along, and he figures out that Suzuka predicted Itsuki would try to contact him and use that as part of her plan to trap them. At the same time, Shido blames himself for not saving Kaori in time and, overwhelmed with guilt, begins punching the stones on the ground in frustration. Everyone agrees they need to return and help Mikan right away. While they're heading back, Shido opens up and tells them about the time when Mikan's mother lost her life. He explains that 3 years ago, the Katsuragi family tried to perform a ritual, but it failed and the Oni ended up vanishing after that. Meanwhile, back at the ritual site, the Oni shows up again and gently places Kaori on his chest. Soon after, the Katsuragi clan manages to trap the Oni and remove one of his horns. But as they do that, Kaori screams in pain since taking off the horn somehow causes her to feel it too. After hearing the Oni's voice echo through the area, Shido quickly warns the others that the final stage of the ritual will end with the Oni being transferred into Mikan. At the same time, Suzuka calls Mikan forward, saying she must become the sacrifice. But before the ritual can be completed, the Oni suddenly breaks free from it. Just then, Itsuki, Hanami, Ren, and Tatsumi show up and step in, saying they'll fight the Oni. Suzuka agrees to let them try, but she makes it clear that she doesn't believe they stand a chance of winning. Using his glamzite, Itsuki tells Hanami what to do so she can stop the Oni from moving. While she keeps the Oni still, Mikan and Kaori start working on the Katsuragi ritual. The Oni still has one horn left, so he tries to stop the ritual. Just then, Adelicia shows up and uses one of her summoned demons to take off the Oni's last horn. With the Oni fully stopped, Mikan and Kaori finish the ritual, and the Oni disappears. Suzuka watches everything and is really impressed, and in the end she agrees to let Mikan return to Astral and asks Itsuki to take good care of her. Meanwhile, Sekiron starts to get worried after he notices that a Buddhist idol is wearing away, so he begins walking through the city to check things out. At the same time, Itsuki and Adelicia are having a nice meal together. But when it's time to pay the bill, Itsuki gets super nervous and nearly pees his pants. After eating, they walk around the area, and Adelicia points out that this is the place where they met for the first time. Curious, Itsuki asks her why Hanami decided to join Astral. Adelicia tells him that Hanami was always by herself and seemed like she was in a big hurry to learn magic. Adelicia also thinks that Hanami made a promise to someone, which is why she joined Astral right after finishing school. As she and Itsuki are about to do something a little fishy, they suddenly hear a boy shouting for help. When they go to check it out, they see a boy trying to rescue Genbu, one of Ren's cats, who is stuck up in a tree. Afterward, the boy introduces himself as Finn, and Itsuki tells him that this cat belongs to his company. They head back to the Astral Mansion, and Ren looks really happy when he sees his cat again. As a thank you gift, he gives the boy some food. After that, Hanami shows up and recognizes the boy as her old classmate. She explains that he once let her study Celtic magic with him. The boy then shares that he's actually a member of the association, sent to keep an eye on Astral. His name is Finn, and he brings up the association's worries that Astral might be breaking a taboo. Later on, Itsuki follows after Finn and asks him a question about what a mage really is. Finn replies by saying that a mage is just a heretical freak. After that, the two of them start talking about Itsuki's glamzite. Once Finn walks away, Itsuki suddenly feels pain from using his glamzite, so he decides it's best to leave. Hanami shows up, and Finn turns to her and asks why she never told him about Itsuki having glamzite. After that, a thick mist spreads across the city, and Sekiron shows up, saying that the seals holding a dragon in the city have been broken. Itsuki quickly figures out that Finn is the one behind this and heads out to face him. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Hanami is helping Finn summon the dragon because she believes the dragon might be able to cure Itsuki's glamzite. After that, Hanami goes all over the city, drawing runes with her own blood to prepare for the dragon summoning ceremony. Meanwhile, Ren tells the rest of the Astral members that Itsuki's father, Tsukasa Iba, picked this city for Astral's headquarters so they could secretly watch over the dragon. Then, Ren uses a spell to bring both Hanami and Itsuki back. Somewhere else, Adelicia confronts Finn and tells him that it's normal for mages to hide their aura, but with him, it feels different. She says that he must either be totally useless or a really powerful mage. But Finn just replies that the real useless one is Itsuki. After that, Hanami orders her summon, Shax, to attack Finn. However, even without using any magic, Finn easily defeats her summon. Then, without even moving a step, he begins attacking Hanami directly. Idolicia says that Itsuki's glamzite was contaminated because he saw a fragment of dragon when he was a child. But Finn says that Hanami blames herself for it and it gets her off guard, so she gets hit and falls. After that, Itsuki and Sekiron show up, but Finn quickly takes Sekiron down. Itsuki asks if Finn's goal is to destroy his eye patch, and Finn answers that he's doing it because it's what Hanami wants. Idolicia summons her knight to fight, but Finn easily wipes him out. Then, without warning, Finn appears behind Sekiron and strikes him again. After that, Finn reveals that he is actually a changeling and that he also has glamzite, which overwhelms Itsuki and knocks him out cold. Ren's spell manages to reach Itsuki, Sekiron, and Idolicia, but before it can pull them all back, Finn interferes and breaks the spell, which causes only Sekiron and Idolicia to be taken, leaving Itsuki behind. Hanami and Finn bring Itsuki to a tall tower, where they start the ritual to summon the dragon. Ren guesses that the dragon is going to be used as a sacrifice to fix Itsuki's damaged eye. He also thinks that Hanami is doing this because she feels guilty. When they were kids exploring a mansion together, she accidentally exposed Itsuki's glamzite to the dragon's power and hurt him. After that, all the members of Astral head to the tower and are met by the dragon guarding it. Sekiron, Mikan, and Minami stay behind to fight the dragon, while the rest move forward into the tower. Ren is the first to reach the top, where Finn is waiting. Finn asks him what he's doing there, and Ren simply says that he came to get their president and their employee back. However, Finn suddenly uses his glamzite to launch an attack on Ren, but Ren fights back by using his own magic. Then, Finn tells Hanami to fire magic missiles at Ren. Hanami looks at Ren and says that she has no choice and that he shouldn't get in the way. Right after that, Idolicia jumps into the fight and summons Asmodai, her strongest demon. Hanami answers by casting one of her most powerful spells in return. Just before things get out of control, Ren steps in and stops the fight, worried that the huge amount of energy building up could end up destroying the whole area. After that, Itsuki wakes up and activates his glamzite. He tells Hanami that he doesn't blame her for what happened with the dragon when they were kids. Then, he and Finn begin to fight, as Finn prepares to launch a powerful attack that can't be blocked. Hanami suddenly turns against him and says she loves Itsuki. Right then, members of the association, led by Kagezaki, start showing up, and seeing this, Finn decides to escape. Because Finn betrayed the association and there's no real proof that Astral did anything wrong, the association decides to clear Astral of all charges. After everything is settled, Itsuki and Hanami go to visit the dragon one last time before it gets sealed away. The dragon asks Itsuki to give it a name, and he decides to name it Astral. At the same time, Idolicia is being pressured by the association to either choose a new leader for Gosha or get married so she can officially keep her position. To deal with this problem, she goes to Astral's mansion, where Itsuki and Hanami are busy studying. Instead of proposing to Itsuki, she surprises them both by offering a marriage proposal to Hanami. She explains to a very confused Itsuki that the marriage is only as mages, meaning it doesn't carry the same meaning as a real marriage. With help from Diana, Idolicia and Hanami choose their dresses and jewelry for the ceremony, while an annoyed and awkward Itsuki tags along with them. When the wedding starts, Daphne begins the magical rites, but just before everything is finished, Itsuki grabs both Idolicia and Hanami and walks out of the church with them. He tells both Idolicia and Hanami that he could tell their hearts weren't truly in the ceremony, and they were just going through with it because they felt like they had to. After hearing this, Idolicia contacts the association to let them know that the marriage is officially cancelled. Later, she and Hanami toss their rings into the river, and after that, Itsuki ends up having to go in and fish them out. Do you think Itsuki will ever master his glamzite and lead Astral to greatness? Drop a comment with magic if you want a part 2. Make sure to like and subscribe the channel for more content.